I would have loved to have joined earlier, but I am, as Brenna said, I facilitate a food addiction recovery retreat, a 12-step based retreat, and I'm in the middle of one right now. We've lived here. I've been here with the participants living here. I pack a bag and come since Wednesday afternoon. We shared dinner together on Wednesday evening, and then we are here with each other through tomorrow lunch. And while they're here, we are certainly detoxing off of sugar, flour, and sweeteners. Diet soda is one of the harder ones that we have with people coming in, and coffee creamer, the sweetened coffee creamer. So we go through some detox. I have 13 women from all over the country, and we certainly have headaches and fatigue, and I think probably a little irritability, although they're usually pretty respectful. Once in a while, I can see it in their face or feel the energy. So they are on break right now. And I usually tell them to try to get a nap and a walk in. And but it is today, they're usually coming around a little bit and feeling a little bit of hope. And while they're here too, we teach a very clear food plan. We do weigh our food. It's boundaries. That's what we talk about, is putting boundaries around food. And we take out all flour, sugar, sweeteners. And so it's whole unprocessed food prepared by a chef, a professional chef in a kitchen. We rent space from a regular or a 12-step based treatment center for alcohol and drug addiction. And so they have special food they make for us during this time and bring it to us. So that's what I'm doing. And it's from 7:30, we start with meditation until probably about 11:30 at night. I'm kind of on the go. So big sigh, right? So what I'll say is, Brenna, when we talked, we had such a good talk when we connected, and when we did talk, I was so excited, like, because I'm just so passionate about what I do, that of course I'm like, yes, and then of course I'm like, maybe I should have said yes in the middle of this. So, certainly I think I'm nervous, and probably I haven't been able to attend at all, so I don't really know how it goes, how it's going. I don't know if it's casual, more formal, so I decided I just present. And again, I just appreciate you asking me, Brenna, because I am really passionate about this. I have worked in addiction treatment for 30 years, and I have worked in this current position with this angle, this specialty, for 7. I just had 7 years in August was how long I've been doing the CORE retreat. It's called CORE, and I will put that in the chat later. CORE, COR, which means heart or soul in Latin. So I've been facilitating this for 7 years, and I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. It occurs to me oftentimes when I'm doing it, and I also do run another treatment group, just a recovery, growth, relapse prevention group in an alcohol and drug treatment center. I just think I don't ever want to retire from doing this, because I do believe 12-step recovery works. It works really well. So it's an amazing miracle. It's not magic. It's a miracle. But it works for a lot of people. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but it truly can work. I think better than expected for so many people, which brings me to the angle that I think about and I've been working on this for a while, that I believe is important to talk about when it comes to why would 12-step facilitation work for eating disorders, binge eating disorder, food addiction, compulsive overeating, all the different ways we might describe it. And what it has brought me back to is Dr. Silkworth, from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, from the section Doctor's Opinion at the front of the book. And Alcoholics Anonymous has been successful. It works. We don't have a lot of evidence that it works, and that's one of the things, Brenna, you and I talked about, right? Is how do we show the powers that be or fund or whatever it is, that it works, that it's effective. And I'm not quite sure about the answer to that, but I know my perspective of working in 12-step recovery, addiction recovery, and also I'm in recovery myself. I got sober at age 21. And when I share about that, I talk about that I believe that I am sober today, largely because I found a group of an AA group that was a welcoming place, that kind of carried me along on this positive wave at that young age when all odds were stacked against me. And and I was invested enough at the time. I really that I looked at the promises and the steps, and I had a real understanding my life is going to go better. And it felt better. Felt good enough that I have not drank again. So that's 37 years of sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I really love Alcoholics Anonymous. I still attend. I've watched it in my work as an addictions counselor. I've watched it transform people's lives. And so I believe in that from that personal vantage point. That said, I believe my first addiction and primary addiction was sugar from a young age, from a toddler. I don't have a memory growing up of not chasing sugar and craving sugar and not being able to get enough sugar, and having, especially my mom, trying to, Nancy, that's enough, trying to control. I was chubby as a child, and certainly I've got a history of bulimia, and getting sober at age 21. I think I'm sure most all of us on here would understand that, if there's a sugar addiction, right? It's gonna come roaring to the forefront when I put down alcohol. Alcohol is full of sugar, so I put down an intoxicating sugar and picked up, I guess, continued to consume another intoxicating sugar. And so I hummed along in my life, really struggling with that for many years. And in 2014, I attended the core retreat myself, November of 2014. And I couldn't be happier or more proud and satisfied with my life now, almost 11 years later, having had no sugar, no flour, and none of the trigger foods that I've identified. I've learned along the way that there's some trigger foods that don't work for me, but to be in abstinence in the same way that Silkworth described, because I have a phenomenon of craving with certain foods, and what a freedom I've got in my life from completely surrendering those foods. And I joke about mindfully eating cake, and I don't think I've ever mindfully eaten a piece of cake in my life. And as it turns out, I've had enough cake for a lifetime, and so I can surrender that completely. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen share, to, let's see, it always takes me a minute to do this, of course. There it is.
You're not the first one.
Okay, good. Good. And then I think I can probably make it a little bigger. So what I did is I just thought, let's take a look at the doctor's
We're
opinion.
not quite seeing the screen share yet.
Oh, I didn't push share maybe. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, we're still not seeing it.
Huh.
Unless it's me, but anyone else chime in if you are.
No.
Nope. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
It's okay.
Share.
We started early. We're just, giving people time to join in. Perfect. Yeah, there we go.
Now you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Oh,
Yeah. Thank you.
all right. So what I did is I thought let's take a look at what Silkworth, how he described alcoholism, and how we talk about it here at Core, and my experience of it, and it out there 13 people who largely identify 100% with this, um, see experience it the same as what Silkworth described alcoholics. So it works. 12-step facilitation, it works. And frustration and hope. After years of working with alcohol and drug addiction, Dr. Silkworth remained frustrated by his and other professionals' inability to affect immediate and long-lasting sobriety or change. And that's what he talks about in the doctor's opinion. The part that he submitted to AA, is that he had been working with alcoholics for years, alcoholics and drug addiction, and they were frustrated. He describes it. We believe it's so suggested a few years ago that the action of alcohol in these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. If any feel a psychiatrist directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental. Let them stand with us a while on the firing line. See the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will not wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel, after many years of experience, that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic movement now growing up among them. So Silkworth is describing here his work with Bill Wilson. He's also describing the frustration and the pain, I think, that doctors felt at the time that he did. When he says, let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments, it's keeping them up at night. He's seeing families falling apart. The men, largely, mostly men in front of him, are dying of alcoholism, and he doesn't know what to do. They felt pretty hopeless because there wasn't a practical solution then that worked. They were not able to come up with any, or to come up with a way for these men to get sober and stay sober. We'll talk a little more when we go further about what he was looking at. What I believe is that this is the same way that we're experiencing, or that we're the same way eating disorders, food addiction, compulsive overeating, um, you know, anorexia, bulimia, um, the eating disorders, the same way physicians, therapists might feel that they don't know what to do. They really don't know um, how to solve it, how to help someone who comes in who is struggling. I talk about we're starting on Monday. We're always going to start Monday. And I think that that's the part of ourselves as a human that has hope. I'm struggling and I want it to be better. I'm going to start Monday. And in food addiction, it's the diet. I need to exert more willpower in order to start a diet on Monday. And along the way, as it progresses, we end up in front of our doctor, morbidly obese, or underweight, severely underweight. Maybe we're bulimic, maybe we're overexercising, which is hard on our bodies, hard on our joints. We show up with all the symptoms of metabolic disorder, cholesterol, blood pressure, A1C, diabetes. I think we watch the, I guess the way those diseases, those illnesses are treated with increasing medication. Um, and I think frustration too, because we don't know what to do. So some of what I'm hoping to talk about or even begin conversation about with people that are working with eating disorders, um, is that maybe doctors, you know, when I was talking with Brenna about it, I said, maybe I think they need to silk worth it. Um, I think there's a place for a doctor to maybe look at someone who might present like I do, like I did, morbidly obese. Um, my weight was going up as I got older. Health problems are starting. What if a doctor in front of me was able to say, I can treat some of the symptoms you're experiencing, but this underlying issue, in the same way Silk were like, I don't know what to do because you keep drinking. I don't know. And basically what Silkworth offered in his doctor's opinion is we don't know what to do. But this here, this altruistic movement is rehabilitating these men. And so this over here is working. After years of experience, that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation. This is working better than anything we've done. Now that said, I don't certainly 12 step can't repair a joint, but I can say that without any medical experience, certainly, or that, um, even right now during this core retreat, I have a woman whose blood sugars have been stable since her first 12 hours here. And she just said it's just a straight line. And she's been working with a doctor who, has been very actively treating her diabetes with reducing sugar. Um, and that's been our experience. You know, the core website has stories, recovery stories that I would love to show everybody. I would love to have a movie of all the people, you know, the before and after picture of the people that have gone through core and the miracles and the success, um, that we've experienced, that are being experienced in this 12-step program. So there's where Silkworth says, uh, we don't know what to do. We can't, it's a grave thing. And I do think food addiction is a grave thing for the people that care about the food addicted person, the physicians that work with them, and absolutely for the person experiencing it. And when a doctor doesn't even really know what to do, I've had people share that the doctor will say, you know, you've got to eat less and move more, um, and certainly that's good information, but just to really be, um, you know, at a loss of what to do. I've got a gal who talked about going to a therapist and they did the alcohol and drug screening, you know, to screen to see if that's a problem in her life. And she was reading through it and she said, I think that I think I need to do this for sugar and food. I feel like I have. And the therapist at a loss said, well, we don't do that here. We don't, she didn't, and I don't fault that therapist, or I don't think that that therapist is not wanting and trying to help. I think that we don't know. In the same way that Silkworth and those doctors at Towns Hospital in New York City didn't know, even after working with thousands of people, thousands of alcoholics. So we're there, and then Silkworth goes on to describe the experience that he watched alcoholics have in their relationship to alcohol and the way they used alcohol. And this, I believe, is also the essence of how we experience food, processed food addiction, sugar addiction, in a cycle. And we have a cycle of addiction that we talk about. Um, the phenomenon of craving is something that I that we that I talk about and that I for myself experienced a freedom from for the first time when I left core retreat in 2014. I left core retreat detoxed, and I will talk about how even when I had first returned home from the retreat, I would go to bed at night and another day was ending. And I was like, I mean, just like almost like stunned disbelief that I had gone through another day, following a food plan that I had learned. And it wasn't a battle. I wasn't white knuckling it. It was easier. I did have to work on preparing food and stuff, but it was easier because I wasn't craving for the first time in my life. In the same way that back in 1988, when I stopped drinking alcohol, I stopped craving alcohol. In the same way that when I quit smoking cigarettes in 2005, I didn't smoke anymore because I wasn't craving it. It wasn't like life was driven by the next cigarette. And I had not known um a, I had not known what felt like. I spent years thinking I didn't have enough willpower. I spent years comparing myself to people who it looked easy for and not understanding. The phenomenon of craving means it's unexplainable. There's not a real reasonable explanation for it. You don't understand it. Um, and back here, he says an allergy, which in the 1930s was an abnormal reaction, was the definition of an allergy, not in the way we think about it today, an anaphylactic, where you have that reaction to something, but an abnormal reaction to food. And what I experienced and what the people that I've worked with at Core Retreat for the last 7 years describe experiencing, and the people that I met before that going to the, Overeaters Anonymous meetings, is an abnormal reaction to food, uh, a tolerance, withdrawal, preoccupation, attempts to control, attempts to quit, control, reduce. I know it's hurting me. I keep doing it. I can't stop. All the classic symptoms from the DSM that characterize dependence. And so we experience that as well. So men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented, unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. So this paragraph, for me, it has so much information in it about to describe not only alcoholism. This absolutely describes food addiction when we take a look at it from that angle. Certainly, we eat because we like the effect. And it's an interesting choice of words, the effect, which is different than eating because I'm hungry. I want an effect. From a very early age, that sugar had an effect on me that I remember. In fact, I was a toddler in a high chair, and my grandma would give me two fudgesicles in a row, and my mom would scold her. And because there was obesity in my family, certainly, same thing. You can see it in a family tree. You do a genogram with someone, and you can certainly see that as part of the addiction branches. And my grandma would give me two, and when my mom would scold her, her answer to that was, "They make her so happy." So from a very early age, it was an effect for me. It wasn't just a treat. And certainly, toddlers love sugar. I mean, sugar is a flavor that although I know that wouldn't have soothed my sister for the most part. It wouldn't have been a solution to her. It was a solution and had an effect for me from an early age. And that's described often with people that I work with at CORE. So we essentially want that effect. The sensation, there again, a feeling, is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. What's the rationale that someone who knows they're overweight, that they're morbidly obese, continues to do what they do. They know it's hurting them. All they think about. A lot of times we'll talk about how preoccupied we are with needing to lose weight, comparing ourselves, feeling bad about weight. Look at the diet industry. We're constantly getting messages to lose weight and how to do it, and what we need to look like, the body image and the idea of what we need. So we spend an inordinate amount of time obsessing about what we look like. And here we are, maybe we're carrying extra weight and we can't stop. It's hurting me. I don't know how to stop. I can't differentiate the true from the false, and that I don't really understand what's hurting me, how I'm eating. Um, I think I'm eating healthy. I'm probably not. I believe that I'm not eating more than other people. I probably am. And the things that I'm eating seem normal to me. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. Also, what overeaters and people with food addiction uh, describe is unhealthy eating patterns. The foods that we choose, the way we binge on them, the amount of sugar that we're able to consume becomes normal. Where we're looking around and it's that progression of denial as well with addiction, in that you keep kind of moving your life to suit how it is now. And now here at Core Retreat, we share breakfast together, we share lunch together, we go through a line, we get one plate of food with the right amount, and we sit down and we like I hear, we put our legs under a table, our knees under a table, and we eat with silverware. And we're not used to doing that. We're people who stand and eat and eat from the carton or the container, or we certainly probably don't sit down and have 3 balanced, nutritious meals a day. We wait all day and then eat at night. We restrict and then we binge. Maybe we just binge. And then, like Silkworth says down here, we pass through the well-known stages of a spree. Once we've started a binge, or once we put for me, if I put a certain food in my mouth, especially, there's certain trigger foods that if I start, I can't stop. So I take those bites. I go on a binge. I emerge from that. And I think it's an interesting difference. Well, the one difference we have is that alcoholics will emerge with a resolution not to drink again. I'm going to quit drinking. With food addiction, we can't quit eating. So ours becomes this idea that we're going to manage it. We're going to manage it, which is what we've been trying to do for a very long time anyway. So it's another layer for us using the Silkworth information. It's another layer for us where we're telling ourselves, I lack willpower because I can't quit eating entirely. I have to come out of a binge purge for me, and eat again. I got to figure out what to eat, and I don't know what to eat because I can no longer differentiate the true from the false. I can no longer attach to nutritious eating. I always say, a lot of us say, what does hunger have anything to do with eating? Eating is a mood, right? Eating is about a mood. It's a sensation. And in this paragraph, Silkworth also talks about they are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few bites, we'll say, bites which they see others taking with impunity. I think an interesting thing is that Silkworth added the dash and the description that we see others taking those drinks or those bites with impunity, because it wouldn't even need to be in there. If you read the sentence, they are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few bites. He could just stop there after they have succumbed, but he stops and says, drinks they see others. I think this more than anything is one of the things that challenges us in recovery, in working with food addiction and eating disorders, is that idea that all around us there's a world of people that we think are eating with impunity. They're eating this, why can't I eat this? um, poor me, I can't eat it. Uh, what's also profound about this is that I always can picture Dr. Silkworth in the 1930s and his experience where he's, up above, he's talking about how frustrating it is. And his experience that he's having is he's looking at men who are yellow. He's looking at men who are in liver failure and dying and smell as if they're dying. And their lives are whatever it might have once been. It's not that he's in a hospital in front of them. And he worked with end stage alcoholism for the most part. And while working with them, he's got this man in front of him. And that man is still clinging to this, why does my wife get to drink? I work hard, I deserve a drink. Like a man who works hard deserves that these people in front of him, despite the fact that they're dying, still are looking around. No, I call it the no fair. No fair. He gets to have a beer. And what's Silkworth? This is the frustration, right? This is the frustration. And I'm going to say that I think for any of us working in the field of eating disorders, when we see someone who's morbidly obese, the Minnesota State Fair just happened. And when we see someone who's carrying that, their illness, just carrying it the way we do in such a painful, visible way, if that's the way, or underweight, I kind of tend to lean towards that. And I don't, there's maybe, I can't probably alter that too much today, but it's so visible. And what's the natural thought? Quit eating, right? Quit eating so much. Well, they can't. And that's what Silkworth experienced with these alcoholics. You got a man in front of you who's yellow, his eyes are yellow. And he's lost everything, or is losing everything, including his life and his self-respect, certainly. In the 1930s, his self-respect, because alcoholism was seen as a moral failing, maybe still is in some ways. Think about fat people. I say that term just because I think it's really descriptive. I'm comfortable with it. I think about the loss of self-respect I experienced when I was fat. Quit eating. I tell myself that, but I'm in this cycle and I can't quit eating. I can't quit eating. I have to keep eating. And if I'm going to keep eating, and I'm going to keep eating things that cause the phenomenon of craving, there's no way I'm going to get out of that cycle. I can't. It's like telling an alcoholic, well, you can have a couple martinis at lunch, and then how about one with dinner, and then you just need to just leave it alone. Just, well, we know that alcoholic has a phenomenon of craving. We know that total abstinence from alcohol is the best solution for alcoholism. It's what's going to work the best. Trying to moderate it, I think, it's definitely been tried. It's not true. If you have real alcoholism, I guess, is how it's described sometimes. But really, truly, and in my experience, I've earned my stripes. 30 years in the field of working with treatment, in treatment, alcohol and drug addiction, I've earned my stripes to say it's probably not going to work. So there we are with that. So the level of the lack of self-respect, shame, the idea that I should be able to control this. And so it's repeated over and over. This cycle repeats over and over. And what Silkworth says, unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. Psychic needs to be in the mind. And what the 12 steps is a spiritual program. And I'd like to say spiritual is that shift from inside. Spiritual, the Latin root is to aspire, the Latin word for breath, the thing that animates life, and to breathe. And spirituality, to seek out or search for personal growth, to make sense of one's own inner dimension. This is the necessary component to be able to make a shift to the idea that I need to follow a food plan. There's a way of eating that's pretty clear, that leaves out food, that other people are going to keep eating. And in fact, not only are other people going to keep eating it, they're probably going to tell us we can have just one, or we can have a cheat day, or we've done it with for so long, and we should be able to do it. We should be able to reward ourselves with it. I think I don't know that we'd ever reward a recovering stimulant addict with a little bit of crack, a cheat day. And I understand we don't see food the same way. I hope we can start. And the reason I'm really hopeful about that, and I'm so passionate about what I do and love it, and appreciate the people that come to core feeling beat down, feeling like it's probably not going to work. Most people get here pretty sure it's probably not going to work. I've tried everything anyway, but here they are. Hope springs eternal. There's still that part of them that says maybe. And that's where I was at when I came to core. I was certain it wasn't going to work. And somehow I had a psychic change. I listened to this information. We talked about it from this perspective. I'd been carrying a big book. I didn't carry my big book around actually, but I'd known the big book. I had a big book, and I had read the big book since 1988. We're on the fourth edition now. I was a third edition alcoholic, right? And it was 2014. So that many years later, I had to take another look at this and understand it from a different perspective and really get leveled by this. I'm a person that Silkworth is describing. It was hurting me. I could no longer, I would have told you I eat pretty healthy because I had tried to take out obvious sugars. I didn't. I was clinging to white flour, like, and it felt normal to me to eat, a massive mountain of nacho chips with melted cheese for dinner, or to make a batter, a cake or a brownie batter, and just eat that. Uh, that had become normal. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I think is important from that to talk about. Like I said, I could probably talk about it all day. Um, I just, it's to help people, to help a food addict, to help a compulsive overeater, to help a binge eating disordered person see themselves in this, to help them understand the experience that Silkworth had with those alcoholics, and then with Bill Wilson. And then most people know about AA. Most people know someone who's in AA, maybe a family member. A lot of times someone here who, like me, is also sober, but, rolled on with that sugar addiction. Um, I think a lot of people understand that it works, and to look at it from this perspective of, does this look like you? Does this sound like you too? Is this how you experience it? And it is. It's an unrest, restless, irritable. We know that eating disorders and it's anxiety, right? It's this is exactly what Silkworth. They didn't call it really anxiety in the 1930s, did they? Restless, irritable, discontented. I'm anxious. I want my life to be better. I don't feel good about my life. I don't feel good about myself. Certainly there's trauma, there's all the things. Relief. Jelinek is one of the information, the Jelinek curve. It's a British doctor who developed this amazing um, guide to understand the progression of alcoholism. And I've always said, if I could, I would have a mural of Jelinek on a wall in every treatment center I've ever worked in, so I could continually refer to Jelinek's description. And relief is what he describes. Relief. as one of the symptoms. He also describes um, loss of ordinary willpower. Loss of ordinary willpower. I can no longer stop. I can't stop. That's what the alcoholics experience. That's the typical alcoholic who now is drinking at his lunch hour, or could wait till the weekends, but now is drinking every day. I can't, any willpower I used to muster, I use. And I always say that I kind of used all my willpower to even get to work. And then I had none left. There certainly wasn't going to be left to eat, to eat less and move more. Um, so the hope comes in. The next paragraph is what Silkworth describes. On the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, which is in the mind, you got to change your mind. I can't stress that enough. To wrap our head around, to wrap my head around, or any of the people that I'm working with, there's been true grief in just the last 72 hours here about Splenda, about coffee creamer, about a donut that someone didn't get to eat on the way here that she wanted to, but they were out of that kind. True grief, right? Um, the psychic change is in our mind that we have to change and say, I can live without that. It's not true. It's in my mind. It's a belief system I have. I really, I'm here today at age 58. It's perfectly, I could live the rest of my life without another piece of cake. I've done it for almost 11 years. I've not had any sugar for almost 11 years. And I'm healthy. I'm grateful. I'm connected. I'm, I think useful. I'm, and I don't need any sugar. So we can go for that. Like I said today to them, we're going to go for the gold here. We're going to get it all out because I don't want you to experience the phenomenon of craving. The phenomenon. And Silkworth is saying miracles. He watched miracles grow up around him in those men. What does he say? We feel after many years of experience that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic movement now growing up among them. The 12 steps. Look at that. Look at these lives. Look at these lives getting put back together, these men helping each other, the alcoholics. And that's another thing about the 12 steps. One of the benefits is it's a community. We know too, the people that are struggling with mental health issues, isolation, being disconnected, not feeling good about themselves, connection, part of a community. There was a book I had years ago about radical acceptance that I read it years ago. And in it, it talked about Mother Teresa sharing that in her experience working with humans. She did not believe that famine or even leprosy, I think she said, is there still leprosy, but working with that those were not even the worst conditions for being human, that she thought the worst human condition was a sense of not belonging. And one of the ways we belong in the 12-step program, or that this can help, is that the first word of the first step is we. So we know that people are going to do better if they're connected. Feels better. You go there, you take up a chair. Most 12-step rooms, you can walk in, you can sit down, you take up a chair, and people are just glad you're there. Glad you're here. I need you. I need to be here. I really do think that at my young age, when I walked into that room of Alcoholics Anonymous, that's why I'm sober, because that's what guided me. I don't know. Do I know? I don't know why it works. It does. So the one barrier that I talked about, I think, with the 12 step and seeing that we could work with food addiction with the 12 steps, is I think it could be the spirituality. It could be the idea that not everybody can do that God thing comfortably. I've found in my years of working with clients, as I've grown and changed, grown and gotten simpler with certain parts of addiction treatment, that spirituality can also be we can help clients, guests at the core retreat, sift it down. Core retreat is actually not a retreat. I always tease them. I say it's actually detox and a little bit of treatment, um, which it is, but it's still a retreat because there's some massage appointments going on right now in reflexology. So uh, it is, but it's treatment. It's a little bit of detox. Could I get someone to sign up to come for a month for the 28-day? I don't know, because I don't know that we take it seriously. It's just food, right? It's just not. It's just food. I'm gonna lose weight. I'm gonna go on that diet. So I think that helping in the 12, if you're doing 12-step facilitation for addiction treatment, helping sift spirituality down to the very personal and very simple idea that it's breath, and that spirituality to seek out or search for personal growth, to make sense of one's own inner dimension. If I help someone, if we're working with someone and we say, isn't this what we're doing? Isn't this why you go and talk with a therapist? Isn't this what's necessary to heal and to change and to uh, recover from a food addiction, from an eating disorder? Don't we have to have a psychic change? I need to change from the inside. If I could diet, I could, anyone could follow a food plan. One of the things that I think is Pleasure Unwoven, the work that Kevin McCauley did in about the phenomenon of craving and the illness, the disease concept, I think is important. I think that's certainly informed me about that. Uh, but following a diet isn't going to work. We can do that. We can't. That's not going to take away the craving. Like I said, I had followed many diets. I had never experienced the lack of craving. And so we have to change from the inside in order to keep that at bay, in order to not answer to the food that we're watching other people eat, the when we walk into the store and the first thing we see is cookies and cake and donuts, and even the beautiful grocery store right up the street from here, it's a kind of a bougie grocery store, has now shifted the layout so that you have to walk through the fine cheeses and whatnot, and a warm cookie station and cakes, and you have to walk through that section to get to produce in the back corner. They have a beautiful produce section with the mist coming down and it's perfectly lit. You have to walk through the gauntlet to get an apple, to get a fresh avocado. So we're going to need to do something. We're going to need to change from the inside. We're going to have to maintain this psychic change, this way of seeing and thinking and feeling, so that we can live our life without needing that relief that Silkworth talks about, without needing that relief that a food addict gets. We know that's why an addict uses, is for that relief. They need the drug. It's the solution to their problems. It's the solution to their stress. It's the same for food addicts. And 12-step recovery has worked so well for so many people to help recover from addiction. And it can work with this too. It really can. Um, I think that might be it. Probably some questions, maybe. And I did want to say, I didn't know if I would do this or not, but I think I will. So here, the futility that a person can feel when they're in food addiction is I'm going to say that this is, uh, this is a trip I took to Mexico in 2013. And when I share about that, I guess it doesn't have to be quite that big, but I think you can see that. So I've maintained about 110-pound weight loss. And again, I direct you to the core website where you can see other people's recovery stories and hear their experience. But on that vacation, I was so aware of my size and that I was the biggest woman around the pool. I was the biggest person. It was Mexico, and there happened to be a lot of people at the place we stayed from Mexico City. It was smaller people. I was the largest person at the pool. And I was so painfully aware of every day and so uncomfortable. And I actually loved to swim. I loved to suntan. I loved the beach. And I was so uncomfortable every day of that vacation. And I ate and I ate and I ate. So there's the insanity that Silkworth was looking at, right? He's looking at a man who's yellow, who's fighting because he deserves a beer. What? It's insane that my only solution in that addiction, but that's addiction, isn't it? Is to that pain of what food is doing to me is food. So I guess do I say if there's anybody with questions, I
Beautiful.
stop share is what I do. There we
Thank
go.
you so much, Nancy.
Yeah.
Grateful
Hmm.
for your sharing.
Yeah.
Um, if folks have questions, feel free to put them in the comments, or you can, put a little Zoom hand up, or you can just chirp in. And we've got a live stream on Facebook. Let's see. Okay, so we've got one comment here. Can you say something about the relief that core people experience when you say it's not your fault?
Oh, yeah. Um, yeah. That I really think that because we believe it's willpower and because we live in a society that tells us, well, eat less, right? Eat less, move more, diet it, diet it, that that I've caused this, that it's my fault. And it's just not, it's not our fault. It's not, I didn't make a poor choice as a child or somewhere along the way. Uh, that gave me that reaction to sugar and that chasing sugar. I was an otherwise really intelligent little girl, had a lot of friends, I loved school, and I had an insatiable craving for sugar that I didn't choose to have. I had a sister, Beth, who didn't have that. She didn't do something right. She wasn't somehow making better choices. She just did not have that. And so I always want people to be able to bring themselves back even to when they first recall this feeling and where they're at now. When I weigh 265 pounds, it feels like it's my fault, right? It feels like I'm doing something wrong. Why do I compare myself to people all around that it looks like they're doing it better than I am because I'm obese, the biggest woman around this pool. So I believe it's my fault, but it's not. I didn't ask for it. I didn't do anything wrong to have it. In the same way that I do also like to draw the comparison for people like I said, almost everybody knows an alcoholic. And especially when someone's not an alcoholic, you can watch the experience of an alcoholic and you can say, I don't understand why you drink like that. I don't understand that. They just don't get it. Um, they didn't make a decision not to have that. It's not like they made I'm going to make a good decision to not be an alcoholic. I'm going to fight off alcoholism by not having it, right? So people do at CORE. I really hope that we work hard. I see my assistant Joni is on. Maybe she'll just has something to share or add. She's had a cert. I've got a pinch hitter for her this month, so she's at home healing. But I miss you, Joni.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I appreciate you so much. So we really hope at Core Retreat to uh, foster an environment where we can be um, the healing and loving and kind and shame, no, and start to peel away those really tough layers of shame around food addiction and eating disorders.
and we really do stress sustainable recovery.
Yes.
Not protection but how is this sustainable over my life? Because that's so much less shaming and comforting and caring. And I think that's the key of recovery.
Yep. And that comes from the 12 steps. Sustainable comes from staying in reality, staying in honesty and spiritual calmness is that sustainable recovery. It's not a tight fist. It's not a control thing. It's a for an alcoholic, for someone in, it's how do I get through my life and how do I be in my relationships in my life without using the drug? And we're in a world where it's not perfect. I talked about trigger foods. I had a list of trigger foods when I went through core, and it's changed a little bit. There's been some that have popped up. It's not perfect. It's not, we want to see it over time. And we also know that in Alcoholics Anonymous, all the other 12-step programs, and there's so many. I mean, my reference is AA and OA. Sometimes that's even geography of the middle of the country. FA, the other 12-step programs, is if you keep working a program, probably going to stay sober. If I keep working a program, I'm going to stay sober with food. And it's going to keep feeling pretty good. Spirituality, to breathe. It feels good.
Thank you. There's one question in the chat. Would you speak to the spiritual component of a 12-step program and how it differs from religion and how you might address someone who has questions like that, maybe coming to core?
Oh, absolutely. I said earlier, I kind of started to describe it, I think, in that one of a profound moment that I had really in recovery, and it was when I had started working in the addiction treatment field. I was an intern at the time, was in during a lecture that someone had come in to give, and he wrote the word spiritual on the board, and it was a chalkboard at that time. He wrote the word spiritual on the chalkboard, and then he defined it, that it means to aspire, which is to breathe, and that spirituality is that personal. So I really, really always hope to start there with people and say, overall, there's language in the big book that is, it seems religious. There's also woven in the big book different ways to talk about spirituality, different ways to talk about its unsuspected inner resource. So if nothing else, I would ask people to, if you want to not like a whole bunch of the language here, let's at least look at what spirituality is, the definition of spirituality, to seek out or search for personal growth, to make sense of one's own inner dimension. And what the 12-step are is a spiritual program of action. And I always hope to connect people with that truth, even though there might, it does feel, that was certainly a barrier for me at times. And it didn't keep me out of it, but I went through periods where I would just stand like, I'm not saying that prayer. I still do, actually. One of the AA meetings I go to, they end with the Lord's Prayer. It's a meeting that I love, but I don't think that's okay. And so I used to stand with a way different energy, but the older I get, right, the nicer I want to be, because I think that's a good path to take rather than the other way. So now I just stand with an energy that I know the intent, but I would, if there was a business meeting, I might bring up, I don't think we should close with that prayer. So anybody that's coming in that might have that experience, I'm going to listen to understand, and I'm going to do my best to simplify it down to it's personal. It's right inside here. It literally means to breathe, which is personal. So you define it any way you want, and let's work on changing to be healthy and well, and try not to focus on that. Mhm.
Realize that
That's a great question. It's a barrier. I mean, I know that it is. So it's, and I understand why.
yeah.
Yeah. It's not one I'm going to say to someone, you better, well, if you don't get it, I'm not, no, I understand it. why it can be experienced that way. Mhm.
Beautiful, thank you. And then one last question, which I think you maybe covered a little bit, but what might you say to someone who is struggling with giving up sugar or flour?
I would say to get detoxed, to get come to core. There's other programs that detox you. Shift is one of them. Anyone else that might know one that literally takes that, not take, sounds bad, takes that stuff away, but that supports detoxing. In this Silkworth knew we got to put this guy in the hospital. We got to get him away from booze. He needs to get the booze out so that his head clears enough to make some next steps. So, and for me, core was the game changer for me. First and foremost, because it was the first time I was detoxed and did not experience the craving had diminished significantly within the first week. So when someone's trying to surrender, to detox is essential. And a lot of times you can't do it on your own. It's because, oh my gosh, and the labels and the sugar that's added to things. We just practice reading labels, the hidden sugars. And at core, we're going for gold, aren't we, Joni? We're taking them all out. We got a list of names for sugar to look for on labels, and we're adding to it because the food companies are adding to it too.
It is so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what Joni says, what she brought to us is eating sugar for me at this point is a click or a bang. It's as if I'm playing Russian roulette with craving, and it may be a click, but what if it's a bang?
Oh, for
And
sugar. For sugar, it could be a bang.
Yeah, exactly. For sugar.
I want to take that chance.
I don't. I have such a healthy fear of the craving, because I've experienced life without it, and so I really, but I couldn't get there on my own, and so again, there's other programs, not just core, but core is a great place to come. But wherever you could get, even if you have someone in your life who's completely sugar free and craving, and they can say, come live with me for 5 days and I'll detox you. Do that. Because you won't, if you're, it's like, we know that alcoholics and addicts that are dependent on substances need detox. They need to be separated from it. And it's a powerful craving. It's a drug. So
Thank you so much, Nancy.
yeah, thank you for asking me.
Yeah.
I'm glad I said yes, even in the middle of a retreat. Because as it turns out, it's the right place to be.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we've got a link for core in the chat. And Nancy, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that? Just go through the core website?
Yep. And actually, Nancy at coremn.org.
Great. Nancy at coremn.org. I'll put that in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Yep. Thank you so much.
Yeah, love to hear from anybody. And even if it doesn't apply for you, if there's someone that you know that you love and care about, have them just take a look at the website. Give me a call, send an email. My numbers are the core numbers on the website. But give me a call, send an email, and we'll just chat. One of the beautiful things about core is I'm not going to high pressure anyone to come in. I'm gonna chat with you, hopefully listen and to understand and say if this feels like it's a good fit. Hope we can have you here.
For sure.
So, yep.
Blessings to you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.